Welcome to the Future of Political Consulting by the AAPC, where we explore the evolving landscape of political consulting in a rapidly changing world. The AAPC is a bipartisan membership organization that represents professionals working in the political consulting industry. Today's episode features highlights from AAPC's expansive webinar library. The AAPC hosts monthly webinars exploring the evolving landscape of political consulting, and we are able to share insights that touch on the future of the industry. AAPC members receive complimentary access to the webinar library, and to learn more about membership, you can visit the aapc.org. Now, enjoy the episode. AI in Action: How Campaign Pros Are Leveraging the Latest Tools features a panel discussing research conducted by the bipartisan research team of Normington Pets and 3D Strategic Research in partnership with the AAPC Foundation. They offer quantitative and qualitative insight into the adoption, perception, and strategic use of AI across the political consulting industry. Here, David Konvesky gives an overview of the adoption of this technology.
So just kind of a couple of quick overview points. We're going to see that the majority of consultants use AI on a weekly basis. Over 80% are using it at some point, and a third who use it on a daily basis. So its adoption is pretty broad. In fact, it's actually broader than general population surveys that I've done. Even if you look at white collar workers, it's higher among them. And really, ChatGPT is the dominant one. There's other specific tools that people use for creative, but most of what AI is currently being used for is kind of internal workflows, kind of chatbot stuff, brainstorming. The way we discussed it at the panel was it's a very smart, well-trained intern. And in fact, as I was prepping for this, I started to think about, we use the term artificial intelligence, but I really think we should think of it as assisted intelligence, because that's the way consultants are using it. They're using it as an assistant rather than kind of replacing what they're doing. And so when you have an assistant, whether it's an intern, an assistant you pay, or in this case AI, what are you trying to do with an assistant? One, reduce costs. That's why people use interns, and then increase efficiencies. Instead of one person doing it, now you can split the role up among several people, and that's the same thing that AI is doing for political consultants and campaigns.
In engaging influencers, the panel explored how to effectively manage these voices to build voter trust and drive persuasion. Here, an audience question about when to include influencers in your media plan allowed Tanya Tarak and Lena Katz to share their thoughts.
How early in a campaign should teams start engaging influencers, and what does that timeline typically look like? Who wants to take it?
As soon as possible. Bake it into your initial media plan. Make sure it's there. Make sure that the team that's going to be working on it is, in the conversations with the grassroots operations, with the polling team, with the opposition research team. They should be a part of it because this is going to help really structure the creative brief. This is going to help structure who we're actually going after. Let's say that polling is showing that it's, we really want to be getting these suburban moms from these areas, but we're like, okay, hang on, we're seeing from X, Y, and Z that actually if we branch out a little bit more and get more lifestyle or get more, musical talent or whatever it might be, let us be part of those early conversations. We also do media buying. So my team typically is, which I'm very lucky about, but I know that other creator teams are not. Let us be there from the ground up and make sure that that budget is considered and is baked in that initial planning stage. Also, like you need a good amount of lead time, so fast, immediately.
Yeah, I've noticed this with politics specifically. I mean, and again, it's across the board. It's in consumer marketing as well, but it's like, oh my God, we've got 60 days till this big landmark event, whether it's the vote, whether it's Christmas, whatever. Now we've got to really push and like get all these creators to do blah 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 blah. The space is very noisy at that point. Everybody is out there trying to outshout each other and get their person in front of eyeballs, and it's chaotic. It's very hard to cut through. And also, a lot of times you've got this like, nobody knows who my candidate is. They don't know enough about them. And at that point, like, and you're trying to get the information through, and it's not going to work. Whereas with influencer marketing, you have a lot of time, a lot of runway, and you can sort of introduce your candidate or your cause or your issue gradually and without a lot of pressure, and see what works. Like, what about them, what messaging, what angles, what type of creators is resonating with people, and then build that up over time. To the consumer, that feels more natural. I think there's a marketing knowledge that like they need to see something X amount of time before it really sinks in. So take that time, and I think that's a much better way of doing it than this like sort of mad dash at the 90-day or 60-day point.
In crafting the winning media mix, another audience question allows Danny Laub to detail media that you do not want to underutilize when planning your future campaigns.
One of the questions is, where does broadcast radio fit in the mix? I think this is a super important question. So I'll ask Danny to take this one.
I'm a big believer in radio. I think it's totally underutilized. I think it's one of the most effective tools, depending on the district, depending on the state, and primaries specifically on the Republican side. I think it's a really strong value. I think oftentimes when you're cutting media plans, because I think in politics, you spend a lot of time doing wishful thinking on what your media budget's going to be, and then you have to come back and find out where you lop off a couple $100,000. I think radio is fast to get cut. I think oftentimes that's a mistake. I think we need to remember to, going back to the streaming audio, I would put, although they're different places from a content perspective, streaming audio, whether it's a podcast ad or Spotify or Pandora or a traditional 60-second or 30-second radio, are all kind of in the same creative bucket in my mind. And I think they're an important part of the mix, especially in Republican primaries.
Jill Appler and Andy Blunt were panelists in Thriving in the Off Year. Here they discuss why it's important to have a plan for your future off years, which are never really off.
And so I think the way to sort of avoid that is obviously focusing on a plan, having a plan, creating it, working through it, and having everybody involved in that plan. Hearing Andy talk about the spreadsheet and the budget, we also have it set up as, our solid clients, our could-be clients, our reach clients, and our wild dream clients, and we're sort of, with discipline and rigor, every other week coming back to the table around where is that at? What have we done to, move people up that chain into, our paying client group of clients. So we think of it as focus, plan, and working it, FPW, focus, plan, work. And then we just sort of have a cadence of meetings that we stay really kind of disciplined about. We make it fun. I have one friend, it's kind of crazy, but she and her colleagues set a revenue goal for their company, and she dyed her hair green to remind them when they came to talk to her about, what are we all doing together, to make progress and make money. I don't know that I would do it that way, but we try to set some goals for ourselves and work that plan, and then to be really creative with each other as we do it. And then, we are also trying some of the new things in a thoughtful, and as Andy mentioned, very kind of thoughtful way, where we can with trusted clients again. We're trying to, okay, there's this new technology or there's this new thing. Can we deploy it somewhere? And we are looking to sort of grow our experience with new things in that off year. And so we'll set a couple of those markers down at the beginning of the year, and hopefully come into the on year, if you will, with something we're confident about bringing to the table for our clients or new clients.
I love that. There's no such thing as an off year. Andy, do you have anything to add there on kind of mistakes to avoid?
No, I don't think so. Just, be thoughtful. I think Jill's exactly right. Is especially in these businesses, you should look at your business in a 2-year cycle. So you should be thinking about, when do I need to make CapEx expenses? When do I need to make various investments? How do those investments impact my taxes in a big year with big deductibility or with big income? What CapEx expenses can I make those years to help offset some of that income, to minimize? I think you need to think about it in 2-year cycles as opposed to 1-year cycles. She's exactly right. And think about your budget in that context and your investments you're going to make, etc.
Thank you for joining us on the Future of Political Consulting by the AAPC. We hope you enjoyed this episode featuring highlights from our expansive webinar library. And remember, AAPC members receive complimentary access to the full webinar library at aapc.org. Be sure to subscribe to the Future of Political Consulting by the AAPC on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And join the conversation by following us on social media at the AAPC. Thanks for listening.